guys, Fred Bowler here. Welcome to my channel, The Wildlife Ambassador. Today's episode is going to be on holding snakes, the do's and don'ts. It's a controversial issue, especially on some Facebook pages, but I'm going to tell you why it is a necessary function, especially for young people. Okay, so sit back and enjoy. Okay, guys, so like I was talking about in some places on Facebook and other media poo-poo the handling of snakes, and the main reason given is that it harms the snake or stresses out the snake. Well, in fact, it does no more harm to a snake than it would be like you taking your pet to a veterinarian. They're going to stress out about that. You love that pet, but it's not going to kill the pet, or it's not going to hurt the pet. Everything gets stressed, especially in nature, where a lot of things are considered predators. The snake simply doesn't understand what you're doing by picking it up, but it's not harming it as far as shortening its lifespan. So I'm going to tell you some do's and don'ts when doing such. First, it's important to understand that snakes have teeth, and of course the larger the snake, the bigger the teeth. Snakes such as this black racer have needle-sharp teeth, and they're not huge, but a racer can be very tenacious or it can be very defensive, or in this case, this racer never tried to bite me when I picked it up. But I have been bitten hundreds of times by snakes, and that's what you have to take into consideration when you're handling a snake. It doesn't deter me because, as I'm going to show, most of the snakes I pick up, the teeth aren't large enough to do any serious damage. It's just like a bunch of little needle pricks going in your finger, your arm, your hand, or whatever. And you have to expect that the snake may give a defensive bite, but that goes with the territory. And if you have to do this, then you might want to reconsider picking up snakes by hand. First off, the guy's got gloves on, and this type of procedure can hurt the snake. He's pinching the heck out of the snake. He's clearly afraid of the snake. He's afraid of getting bitten. Now, getting bitten by a snake this size, it's nominal. I mean, the damage is nominal. It's little pinpricks of the teeth. And if you're not expecting, or if you're not liking or taking the chance to get bitten by the snake you pick up, don't pick it up. I've been bitten hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. I can't count in 50 years, but how many times? But it doesn't bother me. It's not severely debilitating. It doesn't give you severe injuries on snakes, on smaller snakes. And when I say smaller snakes, up to the size that rat snakes get. The bigger the snake, of course, the bigger the teeth. And we'll discuss captive snakes and snakes in other countries, such as pythons. Now, these are the typical teeth marks of snakes such as racers, garter snakes, rat snakes, and the like. Snakes have teeth for gripping their prey since they don't have arms. And so they're recurved teeth, and some snakes will have longer teeth depending on the species, such as if you have snakes that grab frogs, fish, like your water snakes, they tend to have more recurved teeth for holding on to those animals. But again, it is not a debilitating bite. It's little pinpricks. It's just a possibility of from handling snakes. It goes with the territory. So it should always be understood that can happen, but not a deterrent. So here you can see the teeth of a snake. And this is pretty typical of snakes, all snakes. They have recurved teeth. And those teeth are curved backwards, so they can hold on to their prey. Since they don't have arms, this aids in holding on to their prey and also helps them swallow it by the muscles in the throat constricting and pulling that prey back, and the teeth hold it in place so he doesn't lose the grip. So you can imagine when these teeth go into your hand or finger or arm, you don't want to have a pullback response. It takes time to train yourself like that. If you're going to be handling snakes, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to be bitten. I've been bitten many times through the years, and it took a while to train myself not to pull back from a bite because it's a little bit of a shock maybe a little bit of pain, but it's not serious. And it's not so serious that you can't get over that mind over matter or that response. And it is mind over matter getting over that bite response. So far I've been talking about handling the smaller snakes, excluding the pythons and boas. That's a whole different animal, and they can be very dangerous and even life-threatening. Even the bite from a large python or a boa can be life-threatening. If it hits an artery in your wrist, your arm, your leg, wherever, you can bleed out. Not to mention they are constrictors. So large pythons, there have been many accidents with them recorded on owners of large pythons. But the important thing is pythons in situ, or in their country of origin, in the wild, can be extremely dangerous. And you really have to know what you're doing if you're going to pick up those snakes in the wild. And you don't just reach in and pick them up. As shown here, you have to use this constriction method. They are big, full of muscle. This method doesn't hurt them, but it is necessary because they can do severe damage, especially like tree boas have huge teeth of South America. Huge teeth because they catch birds, and those teeth have to get through all the feathers. Snakes like reticulated pythons shown here are very temperamental and tend to be extremely defensive. And of course it should go without mentioning, but I have to mention it because common sense a lot of times is not a common virtue, and a lot of people have been bitten picking up venomous snakes. Can't believe I even got to talk about it. Never ever freehand a venomous snake or even attempt to pick up a venomous snake by your hands, because those snakes, as we know, snakes have jaws on ligaments. They can turn their jaw 180 degrees of each other, and all it takes is one fang and a finger and you're envenomated. Never ever pick up a venomous snake. And in the photo I'm hooking a very large eastern diamondback rattlesnake. Is the safest way to do this, and it still got my knees shaking because this big guy wanted me. He was very defensive, and but it's necessary. I'm a trained professional in this position, and they need to be fed, and they need to be cleaned, and they need to be moved, but they need to be moved properly. At 100% safety record on the job. A few species of snakes never bite, like this Brahminy blind snake. They do not bite. There's never been a recorded history of a bite, and they eat ant eggs and termites. So really cool snake, although it is invasive to the state of Florida, but low impact. Another snake that rarely bites, I've never been bitten by one, and I've held hundreds of them, is the hognose snake. Eastern, southern hognose. They're toad eaters. They primarily eat toads. There's some argument in that they may be venomous. There are some bites recorded on these, but I've never seen anybody bitten. I haven't been bitten. This snake here I picked up to educate about, and they flatten out their head to look like a cobra, although how they know what a cobra is, I have no idea. But because there's no cobras in North America. But, and it's a bluff snake. And this snake will also have play dead, like a possum. And if you tease it too much. But this snake wasn't too upset, and I let him go on his way. But again, stating the fact that I never got bitten by this snake. However, some snakes tend to be more tenacious, more defensive, and one of those is the yellow rat snake. And this just leads into expecting the fact that you could get bitten, but also knowing the fact that it's not going to be a debilitating bite. But this yellow rat snake never bit me. I picked it straight up to get it out of the street, move it out of the roadway, and he wasn't interested. He smelled me and never bit me at all. And I let him go on his way. And I saved him, which is what we should do, but don't get hit by a car doing so. It's my opinion that we should allow our children to experience the flora and fauna of where they live. And for example, this is my daughter. I live in Florida, there are many reptile species, many snake species. So I educate them knowing that they will come across a snake some point in their childhood. And with mine, it was very early. I not only had a collection of snakes of my own privately, but I worked in capacity in the herpetology department of zoos. And so I wanted to pass this on to them, the respect of snakes in our world, because they deserve it. They're very beneficial, and the negative side of snakes is far less than the positive side of snakes. You should educate them on the species of snakes, venomous. Like I started my children out early in life, before 5 years old, and they were able to point out a venomous species if they saw it in the yard. During their early life, we lived in a swamp, literally. My house was raised, and it was like the Amazon to them. So I had to make sure, because I wanted them to be safe, but also knowledgeable about the world around them. Just go and get anywhere, go outdoors. When they start knowing how to open a door, actions can happen. So I educated them on alligators, venomous reptiles. And then with the non-venomous, I started showing them the different species, who was more tenacious than others, and what it was like for daddy to get bit. And when they saw that, they're like, oh, and I talked to them about it. And so they grew up with no fear. It's very important as parents, I believe, not to pass our fears onto our children, so they have an irrational thought about such things as snakes. So along with teaching our children not to fear snakes, we must teach them respect for species and educate them on the importance and the benefits of all snake species. Now, in this next video coming up, a man by the name of Justin Owens sent me a video of his daughter handling snakes. And this is the perfect situation I'm talking about, to educate your children on the benefits of snakes, not to be afraid. And Sydney shows an uncanny ability to not only not be afraid, but respect the species. You notice how she's holding it. This is a water snake, broad-banded water snake. And it is capable of biting, but she doesn't have any fear of that. The importance of education and respect for species is greater than anything that snake could do to her. So let's take a listen.
Ready? Okay. Sydney, is this a water moccasin?
No.
No, not
It's a
water
broad-banded water snake.
Broad-banded water snake.
We found him in the ditch.
Okay.
He has a really pretty stomach.
Yeah.
And he hasn't tried to bite me.
Been trying to bite everybody else, though.
Yes, everyone else. You can see these bands on the side of his face. They symbolize that he is completely non-venomous,
Okay,
harmless.
so you mean the black bands across his jaw?
Mm-hmm.
So there are no venomous snakes that have that, right? So when you
No
see that,
venomous snakes.
even if you don't know what kind it is, when you see those black bands, you know that it's safe.
Yeah.
And then one thing that is interesting is, I mean, he's doing the, whoa, he's snapping at me. He's doing the triangular head thing.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people think that triangular head means venomous.
They don't.
Don't. Okay, so
All snakes can flatten out their heads. They do that to try to scare people off,
Okay.
or like animals off.
so they're trying to mimic the venomous
Yes,
snakes.
they're trying to mimic.
Trying to bluff you. So he's pretty angry at the moment. He's like, leave me alone. And he's trying to get you to leave him alone, or me, whatever the case. So a lot of people think that this is a moccasin because they're kind of thick-bellied. The water snakes are kind of thick-bellied, right?
Yes.
And they're ornery, and they're always in water. They spend most of their lives in the water. So
I feel like these type of snakes, when they flatten out their head, they almost all to like flatten out their stomach as well.
okay,
Like make their stomach almost look bigger,
okay.
but it's still completely safe.
So you also, I've noticed that you don't really control their head. You're not worried about being bitten.
Mm-hmm.
And why?
Because their bites don't really hurt.
Do they have fangs?
No.
Okay, so they don't have fangs because they're not venomous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a lizard bite, sort of?
Yes.
So if they bite you, then it's going to leave you with, you've kind of described it as I think you call it a tooth hug? Is that right?
Kinda.
I like that. That's cute. Or snake kiss. But they can give you sort of like a paper cut, but they can't injure you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you want to let him go?
Mm-hmm. Is he gonna move?
I don't know. You want to kind of nudge him down there towards the water and see if you can get him to...
Oh. And there he goes.
Wow, there he goes. Okay.
Very quickly.
New home. Okay.
Bye.
Wasn't that awesome? See, so many people have this innate fear, but we can learn from people like Sydney. That snake just wanted to be released and do his job. He has a very important job. Keeping down the number of animals, and in this case, fish and frogs, and even other smaller snakes, he's going to eat those type of things, and that's his job. And to be afraid of something like that and want to kill it is just irrational. And if we can just get rid of this irrational feeling that we have about snakes, and I can understand fears, but I don't understand why you have to kill it. And I've spent a lifetime telling people, please do not kill these snakes. So it's good to see somebody like Sydney and my daughters and other people I know that really share respect for these animals because they're a part of our animal kingdom. They are an integral part of our environment. So I'm not telling you guys to get out there and hug a snake, but oh well if you happen to. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and I'm Fred Bowler, the Wildlife Ambassador. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.